are the cameras rolling.
It's all about representation. Back then, we just didn't have that.
How much different are we as human beings?
Literally. I think a lot of people miss being seen. And when you're not feeling seen, you feel invisible. Oh, girl, why didn't you care? Performing at South by Southwest Sydney, that was crazy. Writing down my little wins.
Like, yeah, I'm glad it is. I love meaning and like sentimentalists.
Necessary. With Tifani. Okay, navigating the music industry looks different for many people.
Yes.
In different ways. And I wanted to know, how has your experience been as far as like things that you're realizing, like, oh, okay, this industry is like this, or aspects of it that you love?
I feel like the aspects of the industry that I love is the ability to pull from all different directions, like all different creative abilities. That's what I love about the industry, because any other industry, you don't really get the opportunity to tap into your like multi-hyphenate side. You always kind of have to choose that side, focus on that side, and then when you get home, you could do all whatever hobbies and whatever. But I feel like with music, like no matter what hobby you have, whatever it is, it's all part of it. So that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most, is that I haven't had to abandon anything of mine, because it all plays into the music. Whereas as far as like the things that I haven't been so ecstatic about, or that I haven't necessarily enjoyed, I would say is that the idea of relationships being currency, I think for me has been something very difficult to navigate, because like I said, growing up, I spent a lot of time assimilating and just wanting to fit in, and that's hard enough. That's that's a hard enough thing on your confidence and your self-worth, right? Or your self-value. But then when you turn that into a commodity, it makes it even more difficult, because now it's a product. And the product might not be something that they might be selling for cash, but it might be you might be selling it for opportunity. And it's difficult when, you know, sometimes you just want to make art, or sometimes you do want to be popular, but then it's like, dang, at what cost do I want to be popular? And you wanting to be popular is costing so much more now. It's not even about people liking you. It's like, people have to like you in order for you to eat. And that's the scary part, or that's the, like, I guess, less glamorous side of the industry that I knew to be true, but I didn't really understand to the extent of which, and that it was it was that way at all levels. Like no matter what level that you get to, it's always going to be that, you know, and that's been kind of difficult, but I've been trying to do better, and I've tried to place less blame on the industry in that sense, because, you know, as artists, we can whine and complain and bitch and all this over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, you have to take accountability for something. If a world is that way, that's the way that the world is. And yes, you can inspire change, right? But change doesn't happen overnight. And so how are you going to navigate that space without allowing yourself to feel jaded, and also making sure that you're prioritizing getting your end goal? Because if you allow yourself to get eaten up at the fact of the way that something is, you're never going to progress, because you're so focused on, oh, this is how it is, or like the water's so cold. You know, like when you go to a pool and you're like, oh, the water's so cold, the water's so cold, the water's cold. Oh, you keep dipping your toe in it and you don't go in. Sometimes you just have to plunge yourself in there, and then you can swim and feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Because the water's always going to be cold.
That part.
You know what I mean?
I feel what has worked for me is, sorry, I don't know, I'm doing like this dramatic silence.
You're fine.
But it has been have many different things I'm dabbling in. Music being one of them. I love this platform that I've now created, because it's helped me in many ways. Because I felt like, let's just say I'm frustrated with only such certain amount of people liked this song or whatever, that it's like, it lessens the blow for me, where I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, you know, and then I can go now into my podcast stuff, or I can go look about the real estate stuff, whatever. It's like, it lessens the blow, but also being mindful of don't have my attention all over the place. Where it's just like, you're not,
you're still not focusing. I think that's it. Like, a lot of people feel like, you know, there's this whole quote about Jack of all trades, master of none, and how like that's not the whole quote, and like you have to continue and all of those things, and it makes sense. I think that you can easily get distracted by trying to pick up 101 things, but then you can, and I was also speaking, I recently had like a vision board party. One of my friends was hosting a vision board party, and one of the women, she made, or we were having a discussion about how, you know, you can't shy away from disappointment. You know, like disappointment's always going to be there. Like you can't run away from crying. You can't run away from someone disappointing you. So instead of like running away from it and dodging rejection, like just welcome it. And the more you welcome it, the more, I guess, accustomed to it you will become. And the more accustomed to it you become, the more shameless you become. And when you become shameless, you can achieve anything. Yeah. You know, so like, I get what you're saying about like lessening the blow, but sometimes you just need the blow. Sometimes you just need to go through it so that you know that the next time it happens, it doesn't faze you as much. True. You know, so that you are able to put that focus into those spaces. Because if you're always kind of avoiding the blow, then you're not going to allow yourself to progress or get to the next level in those spaces. And I think that's something I'm speaking to myself in that as well, because I think with music, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's just easier for me to not face rejection if I don't ask for people. If like, for example, let me not ask people to buy my shirts, because then what if I put my shirts out and no one buys them? Let me not tour, because what if I put the tour out and no one buys tickets? Like, people aren't going to buy tickets. Okay, and then what? You're going to move on. Yeah. But then you're going to, but then because you were able to put it out, because you took that step to put it out, and because you faced rejection head on, when you do it again another time, you're not going to be disappointed. Yeah. You're just going to be like, all right, this is the possibility of what might happen. Yeah. This is what happened last time. But, you know, there's also possibility for it to be something different. So that's how I view it.
And I feel there's a other side to it too. The majority of myself is the optimistic. It's the build it and they will come. Whoever they is, you don't even know. It just the other day I realized like how big this country is, and then also to how big the world is. Yeah. And it's like I always get, in a good way, overwhelmed when I go to any airport, and it's like, Jesus Christ, so there's a lot of people here. Like there's a lot of people in this world, and in my head it's like, oh, I didn't know you exist. I didn't know that they make faces like that, or you know. And it's just like and I always play this mind game, like imagine all these people. Like I'm, let's say, going through the security thing, and there's some people just getting off their plane and they're coming. There's a herd of people. I always sometimes think like, imagine all these people wanting to come up to get your autograph, or imagine all these people wanting to ask you questions. And it's like, it just revitalizes me to like remember, in my head, the world may seem small because it's probably shrinking down to a percentage of something that I'm seeing. Exactly. But when you get out in there in the world, it's like, oh no, there's a lot of people. And I'm not trying to make music for everybody. I'm not trying to have this podcast service everybody. Yeah. It can't service everybody. Yeah. But those who it does resonate with, come.
That's who it'll reach. Come. Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that I most recently, like this past year was really hard for me from music, because I let go of a lot of my team members, or I wouldn't even say let go. I just feel like a lot of those relationships became stale. And so I kind
of... Like they weren't doing the work that they agreed to in the beginning?
It was like, okay, there wasn't necessarily anything negative in those relationships. It just became... I had prayed to God last December. I was like, I want a fresh start. I want to be able to, you know, start over and be sure about the people that I will be working with and everything. And literally, you know, I went through the year and I did amazing things with the people that I worked with to get there. But then it got to a point where I was just standing by myself, and I did start over because I made the prayer, can I start over? And God was like, oh, I'm going to show you start over. Wow. I'm going to show you start over. And so, but I think that it was necessary because now I had to rely.
I'm sorry. Whenever I hear that word naturally, it's like, bink.
I knew it was necessary because now I had to focus on building that organic fan base and going back to that focus of build and they will come. Yeah. Because before I was like chasing. I was chasing the next best manager. I was chasing the next best distro deal and chasing this and chasing playlists and chasing all this stuff. And it's like, girl, you're chasing all these things, but you're not even paying attention to the people that support you. Like when you said that the world is so big, that's so true. Because like I used to feel so bad because I went from like 50,000 monthly listeners to like 11, right? Okay. 11,000, right? And I thought to myself,
wait.
Exactly.
That's still a lot.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But I got so depressed from seeing that number drop. But then I thought to myself the other day, I was like, girl, do you know how many people 11,000 is?
Imagine being in, I don't know, high school basketball gym. I don't know how much that can fit. But I don't think 11,000
goddamn arena in a stadium. Like, that's a lot of people that listen to me monthly consistently. Or like even my most recent song just recently got to like almost 2,000 streams. Mm-hmm. And in my mind I was like, 2,000 streams. I was like, there's somebody that played this song every single day for the past 3 months. Do you know how crazy? Do I listen to a song every single day?
Wow. Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, dang, I really have to, like you said, just see that the world is much bigger than a percentage. Mm-hmm. I think that we've been kind of trained to think about percentages and not actual physical people because we're online, we're chronically online. Yeah. But yeah, that's crazy. And then on top of that, the idea of like me now when I make my music, now when I release things, now when I post pictures and things, like, I get in my head sometimes like, oh, I'm being shadow banned and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, I really do appreciate seeing the same people ride for me every single day.
And
like,
what was the word you used? Shadow banned?
Shadow banning. Yeah.
What
it's
is
like,
that?
Like when, or it's the phenom that is believed that, you know, when Instagram or TikTok or whatever, there might be certain things about your page where they now hide your content to the necessary viewers. So like you might not show up, like you have the followers. Okay. Yeah, but you might not be a priority view for the people who are following you. So like if you think about it, you probably follow, like I follow 1,500 people. Mm-hmm. I don't see 1,500 people's posts every day. I see about the same, maybe 10 to 15 people. Yeah. So it's like Instagram is not making me one of those 10 to 15 people. Yeah. For a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's making me the 10 to 15 people to like maybe a couple. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not reflecting on how many people follow you because the people who are following you aren't seeing you. Whereas before with algorithms and things like that, whoever you follow, you see. Yeah. You know, there was no rhyme or reason to it. Yeah. Whoever you follow, you would see. However, now it's just not like that anymore. But it makes sense. I think before I used to be like,
what's the logic behind that?
I was just about to say, I feel like it makes sense because back then we would only follow like 100 people at a time, right? Like when you think about when Instagram and Facebook would first start, it was crazy to consider like having 100 friends on Facebook. It's like, why the hell do you have 100 friends on Facebook? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it was all like people that you would know or a friend of a friend. But now these things have become more of a network or a mesh network, and it's like unrealistic for you to see 1,500 people's posts every day. That's very unrealistic, you know. And at what space are you going to create ads? And then half of those people you're just following because you met them on you know, in middle school, or you're not even interested in the content that they're creating. So if you're looking through your Instagram and you're just seeing a whole bunch of things that you're not interested in, you're not going to go on Instagram anymore. True. So the whole point for Instagram, I guess, or at least I think what their logic was, is that they want to curate content that they know that you're interested in to keep you on the app so that they will be able to create advertisements that are also catered to you to keep the businesses happy, so that they can get their customers through ad sales. And you're happy because you're seeing content that you're interested in. Yeah. And so that's what that is. But I think it's like it's shying more away from the original purpose of the apps. Like, but then we have to remember these apps were made in like 2008 and 2013. No, not even 2011 or so. And that was like 10 years ago. So like, of course the purpose is going to change over time. And so that's what I've tried to come to terms with. You know, I don't want to be that boomer that's always talking about, oh, the good old days. Remember when we could do this and this and this and this? Like, nostalgia is always going to be there, but it's like, well, how do you adjust to the times?
That part. And then I feel too, because if not, we could easily become like our parents, and it's just like, would you please just evolve? Literally, it's like, no shade to mine. I just,
you know, it's like, you know, like, can you pay attention to what's going on? Like, I know you don't like it, but like, can you pay attention? And maybe you will like it if you were. And I think that's the mindset that I'm trying to develop is not to complain about everything that's going on, because I feel like the algorithm, I don't think that they intended for the algorithm to have such a negative impact on people's mental health because of the idea of instant gratification and things. I think what people enjoyed about social media before was like, you get to share this thing about yourself, and then there's people who are giving you that gratification by liking the post and commenting and interacting and letting you know that you're being seen. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people miss being seen. And when you're not feeling seen, you feel invisible. And when you're invisible, you feel rejection. And when you're rejected in the digital life, you feel rejected. You feel like that kind of translates into your physical life. Shoot. Because you're spending 90% of your time on your phone. Jesus. You know, so it's like a cycle. And I don't think that that was what they knew would come from that. Because because what I described earlier makes sense. It's like, I don't want to see stuff that I'm not interested in, right? But then in the other side of it, now you have this idea where like it's like a social hierarchy now. Like, okay, well, who are the people that are being considered popular, and who are the
like high school
what is
the again?
Exactly, what is the information? But it's on crack now, because it's like at high school you can. It's true, like everyone knows. Like if the old, now coming of age stories are very different. But if you look back at like older coming of age stories, it's like you go through all this stuff in high school, and then it doesn't matter anymore. You know, you leave high school and it no longer matters. Like the popular kid is no longer the popular kid. You know, everyone goes about their own ways.
Sometimes they're worse off.
Exactly. You go off into college and you get to reinvent yourself and live your own life. Whereas now it's like high school is extended to the oblivion, because you're still seeing ways, what is even the purpose of reunions if you've seen everybody's life on social media?
Well, we don't go to that.
You know?
I don't want to forget this.
No worries.
What is your creative process like when you're going into the studio or working, in your own like curated space?
Yeah. I love this question because I think about it every time I do it. So,
really? Okay.
Yeah. So basically what I do is that I'll write a verse, like something will inspire me to write a verse. It could be something that I saw a friend doing. It could be a story I watched on TV. It could be anything. Any social event can inspire a verse, right? And so for me, my social event that inspired my most recent verse that I wrote was like the idea of like A$AP Rocky and Rihanna, like their fashion killer kind of relationship. Or like the idea of me meeting someone and having that kind of like similar interest, and how would we meet? And like coming up with that fictional scenario, right? And so that was what inspired the verse. So I started writing the verse and I finished the verse, but then I left it alone because I was like, oh, that's just how I am. I'm distracted. I'll write a verse and then I'll be like, all right, whatever. I'll come back to it whenever. And then so I recently came back to that verse last night, and I ended up finishing it, and I developed the story even more. And now at this point, even though I was inspired by that then, now I'm inspired about making a story into it. How can I turn this into a shock value? How do I make this into like a TV show, whatever the case may be, something that is going to engage the audience. And so then I finish those verses, then I find a beat that it might go well with, or because the initial verse I might have written to one beat, but now like since the story has changed, I might want to do a different beat. I play around with different beats. Then once I find something that I feel like fits, I practice my cadence over and over and over again. I practice it like I practice lines, like, like how actors practice lines. And like they might change different inflections or different intonations in the way that they present it, because they know that this is any inflection in your voice might change the way that it's being translated to the listener, right? Yeah. So then I'll go over each line and I'll go over it over and over and over and over again, play the beat over and over and over again until I commit it to memory. And not only do I commit it to memory, until I commit it to confidence. And once I'm confident in it, that's when I book the studio session. And I'm like, all right, let's go. By that time, I've already broken the verses down. So like, what parts of the verse am I going to like punch in? What parts of the verse am I going to go all the way through? What are the ad-libs that I'm going to add to it?
This full like analysis.
Very, very detail-oriented, like skilled kind of music making. Like I don't go in there just be like, freestyle, like that will never like be freestyle, me. No, that will never be me.
I want to give you your flowers on that.
Thank you,
because I feel many people, which it's like, how could they? But I feel like I'm a seer, and so I want to say that. But I want to give you your flowers on putting the time into your craft.
Thank you,
because that is what I feel many people don't get to see,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so it's like, yeah, I want to be congratulated or celebrated when I have the finished product, whatever that is. But also, can someone give it up for me that I etched out this amount of time?
Yeah.
Because I could have been doing something
Something
else.
else, yeah.
And it's like you're honing in on that.
Literally.
Like, that's crazy.
It's my favorite thing, I think. That's my second favorite. Performing is my first favorite thing. And then the process is my second favorite thing, because the excitement that I get from realizing I wrote a verse, even because when I write that first verse, I'm like, oh, this is the best verse I've ever written.
Yeah.
This is it. How am I gonna? That's why I stopped. Because I'm like, how am I gonna top this?
Yeah.
And then when I revisit it and I write something even crazier, and
Yes,
it elevates what I wrote before, and it tells this story, or it paints this picture, because I like to paint pictures with my music. That is exciting. Like, I'm like, dang, and no one gets to see this. No one gets to witness like me going through it and like learning.
Until the 6th
documentary.
How'd you know to say that?
Really?
I'm such a documentary nerd.
Yeah.
That is just like, oh no, I can't wait. Sometimes though, I do feel that I don't like to record myself, because it's like, this is not for everyone else. This is just me. Like, I just want to be whatever. But then, because I'm such a lover of documentaries, it's like, unless they have this fly on the wall bestie that's always like having the camera on them, they had to have been intentional. Like, you know what? Let me just press record and just, start my little painting and whatever.
Literally.
Let's see. Man, this is so good. What would you say that you've done thus far you're most proud of musically?
Performing at South by Southwest Sydney. That was crazy.
How did that get set up, and how were you
I was just really frustrated with not being able. I just felt really stagnant. So I was looking up festivals, and like I just wanted to be as far away as possible. Like I was just looking up festivals around the world. Yeah, I was looking up festivals around the world, because I think prior to that I had performed at a couple festivals in Nigeria. And then I had performed in London, but I wanted something that was like mine, if that makes sense. And so I just looked up festivals, and like I applied and ended up getting it. And so
wait, what makes, because I'm thinking Nigeria should feel like yours. What made it not feel like yours?
I just didn't feel as welcomed. Like I just didn't feel as respected either as an artist. It was just unfortunate.
There?
Yeah, it was just unfortunate, because it was like, that's something, actually I would like to speak on that. It's like, when you are a child of the diaspora, right? Like, when your parents are from a certain space, or when you are from a certain place, or identify with a certain space, and you go to that certain space expecting a certain
welcome or
level of support, and you don't necessarily receive it, it can be kind of, I wouldn't say disheartening. I think that's a bit harsh. It can just be disappointing, because I think the first mistake was me expecting, right? Because people are people.
It's natural.
You know what I'm saying? It's natural. No one owes you anything. Just because you're from somewhere doesn't mean that they owe you that support. So
but I feel when it's like, when one takes pride.
Yeah, I think that was what it was. Is that I like put Nigeria or Abuja or like on my back in a sense. And I was just really excited to share my music with this crowd of people, because I felt like I was representing a space of music that wasn't really coming out of Nigeria like that. Like I was proud in being like I was very patriotic in a sense. But then still staying true to myself. Like obviously I wasn't cosplaying like someone that from the trenches or anything like that. Like I was still staying true to the type of music that I created. Like very similar to Skepta. Like you're not gonna see Skepta go out and start, I don't know, making a record speaking Yoruba, for example. Like he can, but he stays true to the type of music he does, but then he carries Nigeria on his back.
Expectations.
Yeah, so just like having expectations for a space or a group of people because you've seen how they've supported someone who is similar to you, was kind of like what I did. And so again, I came in, I think I was just very naive to the space too, because I had never been to Nigeria as an artist before. I had always been like as a regular person who liked to party and things like that, but I had never been as like an artist, and I didn't understand what the music industry looked like there. I didn't understand what the crowd was like there, and you know, or how people treated you or anything like that. And I had always gotten good vibes from any Nigerian person in the music industry that I knew individually or in a group. But I think that in the performance space in Nigeria is where I just didn't feel as comfortable and as confident.
Yeah.
I performed, I did what was needed and necessary of me, but it wasn't something that like I was able to go back and feel accomplished by, if that makes sense. But
and
yeah,
so
it was just really unfortunate because it's like your home. You know what I mean?
Part.
You want to feel the most confident. You want to feel the most supported and the most, you know, appreciated in those spaces. But not to say that I wasn't, it just wasn't to the level of my expectation. And that's why sometimes expectations can be the thief of joy. You know what I mean? But, but I think that's the difference between that and Sydney was like, Sydney, I had no expectation because I didn't have anyone, like I have listeners in Sydney, but they have no stake in who I am as a person. I'm not from there.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody there. I didn't have a friend there, anything. I didn't know anything about Sydney. I didn't have anyone there to support me. At the time, I met this wonderful DJ CMJ. Shout out to Judy. She's amazing. She was amazing. She literally took me under her wing and showed me all the different parts of Sydney and like introduced me to so many of her friends.
The person who took you around Sydney.
Yes.
How did you meet her?
Okay, so I was on my For You page on Instagram or whatever they call it, Explore page. And I was looking for people in Sydney because I knew I was going to Sydney and I knew I was going by myself. And I didn't know if I could find anybody that was willing to fly all the way to Sydney with me and rock out with me for free. So I was like, let me go find someone in Sydney. So I came across this influencer from Sydney. And I just randomly DM'd her. I'm like, hey, girl, do you know any DJs in Sydney? And she's like, oh, I only know one. And then she sent me Judy's Instagram. Crazy. And our chemistry is insane. So it's just crazy how, like, God and divine timing and divine intervention, like, works. Because when I met her, it just seemed like we instantly clicked. And she was just super helpful in putting me in the right spaces and getting me comfortable and prepared for our performances. We performed together. A lot of the feedback was like, oh, they thought like we were a duo. Like they thought that we had been working together for so long. Yeah. So it was just cool. And she executed a lot of the ideas like of the mixes and things that I wanted to do. She helped me do that. And Sydney, South by Southwest gave me a lot of opportunities to perform because I thought I was just going to perform once, but they allowed me to do 3 different showcases. Wow. Yeah, and they allowed me to also be able to sit into a lot of like panels and things like that kind of helps me. Wow. You know, like just different events also that kind of helped inspire my creativity. I feel like me going to Sydney definitely opened up my eyes and like rebirthed the artist within me. I could feel that. Yeah, because I felt like prior to Sydney, I just felt super defeated and just like I just didn't feel like I had that support. I felt very abandoned. I felt like neglected as an artist. And when I got to Sydney, it was like, oh no, girl, there's people that are willing to show up again, for you. You know,
the world is big, and there's
literally, and that's where I learned that the world was big because I would go to every show and it would be a new set of people who were like committed to like creating space for me. Yeah. You know, and that was the exciting part. Is like after each show, like I've done other shows, but like after each show, people who I would have never expected to have enjoyed my set to be like, you killed it. What's your social media? Like, I would love to continue to listen to you.
Shout out to those people because it takes courage when I feel seeing someone on stage, like breaking it down, seeing someone on stage can be like, oh my God, because of the elevation, you're grounded in your stage. Then to have the courage and the balls to be like, okay, what am I going to say? Yeah. And some people don't want to be seen as a fan. Like they don't want to, because when you start fanning, sometimes artists can be the, oh, you're below me. You know,
yeah.
And so both sides.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up that side too, because it does take, like, people don't really realize how much their own courage, I guess, in a sense, or like the push for them to say something, right? Like they allowed that push to kind of work its way through and like to give that piece of themselves to me in that moment or in that conversation, I'm always very appreciative of it. I always feel like I don't know how to receive it because I'm just like so surprised every single time. It doesn't matter how many times I've performed. I'm always just so shocked. I'm like, what, really? Oh my gosh, thanks. Like, I'm just so, like, I wouldn't say surprised, but like, I guess I'm just really appreciative and like really, I just really appreciate those people that kind of like validate me in those spaces, because like, in as much as I do enjoy to perform, and I could perform in front of like a crowd of 1 or a crowd of 500,000 and it's the same for me. Like, I'll always give the same effort. It feels good no matter how many people come up to me to let me know like, hey, like you did that and like you should keep. I think what helped me the most was them telling me keep going, like keep going. Like I see you I 100% see you becoming a superstar. Like, just keep going.
Girl, why do you think you're here?
Thank you.
What has been a recent business or personal conversation that has resonated with you, where it left you feeling like, oh, like I need to sit on that more because it was like fresh information. Yeah. Or it was just like a gem.
Yeah. If anything, it's something very simple. Just like the whole idea of just keep going, even when things don't look like they're going anywhere. Yeah. Because I have a handbag brand called Dafe, which is beautiful bags. I'm so sad that I didn't bring one today, but it's a beautiful handbag, and I started it 2 years ago, and I just stopped for like a year. I just didn't touch it. Like, I just left it alone, and it's like, why? You know, what are you gonna gain from stopping? Whoa. You know, like there's nothing you gain from stopping. You gain everything from keep going, because you never know what might happen. Exactly. And I think that's what it is with music. Like, I didn't gain anything from stopping music. I didn't gain anything from putting things on pause. Like, don't put it on pause. That doesn't mean work yourself to death, but just believe in yourself and continue even when you're not getting that gratification, because that gratification doesn't mean anything if you're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? So like, I think that's like just the simple idea of just keep going. Yeah. You know, I think has been resonating with me more than ever now. Yeah. Because I understand the importance. You don't necessarily even have to work towards a goal. You just have to keep going. Yeah.
Wow. Let's move into top 2 because I felt and I discovered and you've confirmed you're a reader. Yeah. What would you say are the top 2 books that have like spoke to you?
Okay, so there's this book called Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know who the author is, but it's funny because one of my like some guy that I used to somebody I used to date.
One of my past things.
Yeah. He introduced me to the book because he was like, you know, in the process of waiting, right? And the book is all about waiting and like loving the process and the journey. And the book follows this guy who he wants to become a samurai. And so he goes to this mountain to become a samurai. And he thinks that, you know, I'm just going to train and I'm just going to become a samurai. Yeah. And then the guy who's training him is like, no, you have to chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water. You'll see, you'll get stronger. And then you'll see that you will eventually, like when the time is right, things will happen for you. Like you have to train your mind. You have to train yourself. Even in the things that you think in the journey are useless, they will always find value. You know what I'm saying? It is all necessary. Like you will always find value in even the most minuscule parts of your journey. So you have to go through the journey. There's no skipping. Because if you skip, you're just going to injure yourself and right back to where you were, back to the beginning. I feel
too many times it's because we don't know what we're being prepared for.
Yeah.
That we think like, what? I don't need to do this. Or
literally,
I'm tired of doing this. And kind of, I mean, self-belief is very important, but sometimes we do need like that extra, as you said, chop wood, carry water. Just
because like, in the end, it's like when you take pride in the routine and when you take pride in the process, when you do it eventually, first of all, you don't even notice how far you're going. Ooh. If you think about it, like when you're in like, when you start to love the gym, you don't even, one day you'll just turn around and be like, oh,
sexy body girl.
You know what I mean? When you genuinely just go because you love it or if you find love in the process, you'll just wake up one day and you'll be like, oh, I'm here. I've arrived.
Yeah.
It's like, even like when you're on a road trip and you're like, I don't know, playing games or whatever it is that you have to do during that process, you're distracting your mind from the journey. Or I wouldn't want to say distracting your mind, but like, you know, you're focusing, you're not fixated on the end goal. And when you're fixated on the end goal, you're never going to get there. That's why people in the gym cover and I always use the gym because I've been in the gym. I love the gym right now, right? So when you get on the Stairmaster, you'll see people cover the time. Because when you cover the time, you just go up and then the machine stops and you're like, oh, okay.
See?
But yeah, so Chop Wood Carry Water is one of my favorite books that I've read. It's one of those books that you actually can read multiple times because you need that refresher and reminding yourself about like how important it is to keep your mind off of the journey, keep your mind off of the end goal and like always just focus on the journey, because that's going to take you way further than focusing on the end goal. And then I would say that my second book that I enjoy is All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Ooh, okay.
I felt like when I first read, two books. It's like there's a boundary. I don't remember the title of the boundary book, but there's this book about boundaries. If I could remember the title, I would, but it's a great book about boundaries that helped me in the beginning of last year kind of set specific boundaries for myself, which to me has made my life a lot easier, because I feel like in the beginning, like I said, when you're growing up as someone that's constantly assimilating, you become somewhat of a people pleaser. Yeah. And when you become a people pleaser, you ironically become very unlikable because you're not speaking for yourself. You're always speaking to the tune of others. Yeah. So,
but to a narcissist or any person who just needs that, like,
it's easy for them to take
my cheerleader.
Exactly.
Well, I was gonna say that they would want that.
That's what I'm saying. It's very easy for them, like a narcissist, to now take advantage of you. And so I feel like that creates a cesspool of like toxic, unbalanced relationships.
Would the narcissist like no longer like you if you're always feeding
them? No. Like that's what I'm saying is that any normal person, let me not say normal, because just because you're a narcissist doesn't necessarily mean that you're not normal. That's just a mental health kind of situation. But I would say that any neurotypical person, right, that has the appropriate boundaries, the way that sometimes people pleasers can come off a bit manipulative because they are speaking to the tune of whatever it is that they believe that you want to hear and what you like, you know, or they might not be wanting to please you. Maybe they want to please somebody else. And so then they're going to try and do whatever they can do to kind of make you bend into whatever way that they can help themselves, you know, be desirable or accepted by other people. And then on the other hand of it, when you're a people pleaser, you're also creating a space for people like narcissists to take advantage of you, and then you're in this like imbalanced relationship, which is just not healthy for anybody. Because then when that relationship, you guys might project certain like if you have kids, for example, you might project certain negative values and negative ideas of what a relationship is on those kids, or not even kids, just maybe people around you, and show them what is to be expected or whatever the case may be. And I just don't think that's healthy. So with that being said, I feel like learning boundaries is so important, because not only do you protect yourself, you protect those around you. Because in the end, not to say that people should be selfish, but people should just be aware of self, you know, and the way that certain interactions might affect them. And you are unable to be of service to anyone else if you can't be of service to yourself first. You know what I mean? And I think that by setting appropriate boundaries, you're able to serve yourself in the best way possible, so that the best version of you can be available to others, you know, without any like biases or any, you know, resentment or judgment or frustration. You're always going to come from a good place if you have appropriate boundaries set in place. You know what I mean? And so that book was really good and monumental for me and a lot of my relationships, because I learned that at the time I had very permeable boundaries. So I would set a boundary and people would be like, yeah, but she don't really mean that. You know what I mean? And then that was only doing a disservice to me, because then I was literally hurting myself. And there's no worse pain than self-inflicted pain, right?
But I feel it takes someone who's aware to realize I help cause this pain.
Yeah.
Because there's some people just walking around like, you know, that person's evil and the world's messed up. And it's like, but you didn't play any part in this?
Yeah. And that's the thing. And that's where people pleasers are like, because they lack boundaries. The idea of having a boundary is being able to recognize your own. Understanding what boundaries are is the ability for you to recognize where you lack them, right? And why you lacking them is plays a part in certain relationship dynamics. But if you're somebody who refuses to see that because you're just like, well, I just do everything for everyone, and why doesn't anybody do anything for me? You lack boundaries, and you refuse to look at, you know what I mean? You refuse to look at what you refuse to identify what boundaries can do for people, or you're upset because those people have boundaries. You know what I mean? And you don't have them for yourself, so you can't place that blame on other people, right? So that's that, and then that's that book, and then
please write a book.
I'm telling. These are all views that I've just like come across over the years, but I would say those are my two favorite books. All About Love is I can't even say that's really one of my favorites. I think it was in the earlier, like last year maybe, because it taught me a lot about like how love exists in certain spaces. But then the more that I get older, I'm starting to realize that there's no one true definition of love, and there's no one way that love can present itself. I do believe and I do uphold the idea that, love is a choice. And if people...
Wait, choice as in whether you are choosing to be open to it?
Love is a choice. I don't even...
Boundaries.
Oh, yeah. And then I was saying that with love, I feel like love is a choice. So I believe that people have to choose to decide, like they have to choose a person that they want to grow and invest in their growth without feeling the need of reciprocation. Like
without what now?
Without feeling the need of it being reciprocated. I feel like that's where genuine love comes from. It's like I'm just loving you, and I'm giving you, and I'm committed to your growth, and I'm committed to who you are as a person and who you can be as a person without expecting anything back. And
why would that? And I wouldn't say, as you said, not saying normal or well-brained person, but I'll speak for myself. I know I'm not going in no relationship with nobody if they don't see that they also need to contribute.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. So love doesn't, the other part of it is understanding where love can be fostered, like what kind of environment. So that's the other. So the first part is choosing to love that person, but then also knowing when to withdraw that love if the environment is not fostering it. It's kind of like you're going to choose to pot a plant, right?
Yeah.
And if the soil is bad, you're going to be like, oh, okay, let me take this out of the soil. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean the soil is choosing the plant, but is the soil an environment where the plant can grow? That's the way that I like approach love. It's like, the other person can love you back, and yes, but I find that to be a separate thing. I don't find that to be a connected thing. I feel like if you love me and I love you, my love for you shouldn't be mirrored based off of the love that you have for me.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's like the environment that you create for me to give you my love is what I look at. Not necessarily whether or not you're reciprocating the exact same love. Right.
Because we all love different and show it differently.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the capacity, and just because your capacity doesn't match my capacity doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad, right? It's just a matter of whether the environment that you have created is able to foster and grow the love that I have for you.
Yeah.
For example, certain areas that love cannot exist is if there's abuse there, if there's neglect, if there's, I think those are the two biggest things for me. If you're neglecting me and neglecting the relationship, then there's no way that if you're not watering the plant, if you're not,
there's no way it can grow.
There's no way it's going to grow. Or if you are abusing the plant, stepping on the plant.
That part.
There's no way it can grow.
Talking bad to the plant.
Exactly. And abuse can be shown in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
Abuse is just the umbrella of the many different ways that it could be presented. So those are the two things that, to me, love can grow there. So then, okay, I'm gonna take my love back and I'll go put it somewhere else.
This just dropped in my spirit where it really takes both people, obviously, but let's say one person's used to abuse, the other person's just like either brand spanking new in relationships so they don't have any trauma bringing into it, or they're just very woke. That it really takes for that person who has been what's the word, not tainted, for them to check the person and not just be like, well, that's just them. I know they love me. No.
But then at the same time, it's even like, you don't necessarily, sometimes people who have been through that trauma can recognize it in other people and be like, oh, you're doing that thing. That's not normal. Or like if you've healed from those previous situations, like for me, I've been able to say, like in my most recent relationship, I was able to see immediately, like, I'm going to let you know that this environment that you're fostering is not, this environment that you're giving me is not going to be able to foster my love, right?
Whoa.
I'll give you that up. This is how you're presenting yourself, or these are the things that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
That is making it not able for it to be fostered. And then if you don't take the initiative to change it, then I'm like, okay, well, pack my stuff and
me
go.
and my flowers are
You know what
going.
I mean?
Yeah,
Me and
yeah,
my
yeah.
flowers are going. Let me go somewhere else where the what's it called? The land is flourishing,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be, or fertile, or however they say it. Because I'm not saying that just because you see someone be a way that you should just abandon them without communicating. That's where boundaries come in, and that's where communication comes in. It's like you can communicate to that person, like, hey, you're doing this thing, and this is not allowing me to love you in the way that is appropriate. So I don't know, are you willing to change this about yourself? And they might say, yeah, I am. But the moment that you see that they're not, then you leave. Yeah. And that's where I feel in the imbalance in relationship is. Imbalance in the relationship is not how much someone loves you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The imbalance is like the environment that they create for your love, the love that you give them to grow. Because the person could say mean things, or I can't even say that because I just don't feel like love can ever exist in a person that is abusive. You know what? Like, so you can tell
like
me
there's
you love me.
a critique or a correction, but not blatant. Like, you know, you're the scum of the earth, and you know you ain't like, shit, or things like that. It's like what?
Exactly. I just don't feel like love can exist. In that. So I can't even say that person would love you back. But let's say, for example, like you're someone who's been scorned before and you have trust issues, right? And so you're constantly like projecting this trust issues onto someone. You're not allowing that person an environment to show love you. Yeah. However, you might be loving on them simultaneously and being like, oh, I thought about this book for you, or I thought about this for you, or I really want you to I want you to progress in this space, or let's do this to help you with that. That doesn't mean that the love that you're giving them is non-existent. It's there, but you're still not fostering an environment for them to give you that love back.
Wow.
So that's where I feel like the imbalance is. Exactly.
I feel that's going to be the word of like, I don't know, maybe this episode or something, because that is really like resonating. And that's true. I could definitely apply that to a few relationships that I have where it's like, but you're not fostering the environment, literally, or the conversation, and or you want more from me. I would love to, but I see you ain't fostering. Literally. So no getty.
The soil is looking real dry.
Hello.
Sorry, I can't. How am I supposed
I need moisturize. I need water. Yeah.
Some sunlight.
Right.
Something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay. Let's go on to your favorite 2 mental health practices.
Well, for one, alone time. Yes. Sometimes you need to retreat. Yes. It's okay. Yeah. Like, you need to retreat. I think
it's necessary, I feel, because
it's so necessary.
There's no way. I know for me, I need to, like, I'll have the TV on mute sometimes just to have the background or fake like company. But on mute, but I need to hear my thoughts. I need to hear what God is telling me. I need to feel how I feel and then dissect and analyze why I feel this way and all that. I don't know how people do that with a background noise around them.
Right. Like, you don't have to ruminate necessarily, but you definitely need a space for yourself because there's a lot of noise going on in the world. Like, you actually cannot escape noise sometimes. So you definitely need to find a space for yourself just to, like, meditate, even if it's just like on a walk where you're listening to yourself. That's, to me, that's number one. And number two is writing down my little wins. Like, that's my favorite thing ever. That
Keeps you going.
Changed so much for me. Like, anytime I'm feeling super, super discouraged, I try to write down my little wins, and like, it'll just put me in a positive mood. I wouldn't even realize how positive it would make me. Like, I'll just be writing my little wins for the week, and by the end of the week, I'm just more positive because I'm seeing positivity in each day.
My God,
you know what I mean?
The intentions too, to again carve time out, and then when you see it, because again too, like when you said focusing on the end goal, if you're busy looking at this or just a corner in your life, but not seeing how other areas of your life are showing up for you, it's just like, of course you're not gonna feel great because you ain't looking at the other stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's see, 2 pieces of advice that has really helped you.
I would say I would go back to the keep going. I think has helped me a lot. And then another piece of advice is don't ruminate. Find a solution. Like, and it can be a toxic trait sometimes where you don't allow yourself to process things that happen to you, but then at the same time it does help to kick yourself in gear. Like, don't allow a moment become your story.
Ooh,
you know what I mean? Like, because it's really easy for that to happen. Like, you have to be able to see things as a moment and figure out how you're going to get out of that moment.
I can only imagine someone who hears this and takes it as like, okay, well, I'll just digest that this relationship that fell apart was only a moment, and this is like, ow, that can hurt, especially, you know, you have the future plans or you were living with this person, and then it's like, but that was just a moment.
Literally, we all we all go through seasons in our life.
Moving on to essence. I'm like already going to the next question. What do you love most about yourself?
Well, I would say like my willingness to keep going, and then also my confidence in being able to pick up whatever it is that I put my mind to. I didn't know that was something to be proud of until the older that I got and the harder it became.
Wow.
Like, I think that being able to believe in yourself, like, no matter what, is such a skill. Like, even the ability to start, I think that's what I'm trying to get to, is the ability to start is such a skill. Like, people don't understand that there's a lot of people on this earth that they can never start.
Wow.
Like,
just I guess they want to
know that they want to do this thing, but they just won't start it. Like, they will have this sense of resentment for the rest of their life. There's people who have worked in corporate America for 30 years, and all of their life they wanted to be part of a band, and they just never knew to just even do a band on the weekend. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of people like that. But if you're able to start,
and what a waste. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that is just very like, you only have one life as you are this person. Quite literally. What happens to that person? And I'm sorry, but that is going to seep out through your pores and in your sideways jokes and your backhanded compliments, because there's just that underlining thing.
Inability to start, man. Like, you just have to be able to start. And I think that if people would stop being so in their head and just allow themselves to start, they'll see like how much it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, it doesn't have to be all lined up. Your ducks do not have to be all in a row for you to do something. Just start. And I think that's what I really love about myself, is that I don't care what area, I don't care like what level I'm at, or how certain things are like stacked up or whatever. I'll just start. I'll be like, all right, I'm doing it.
Yeah, so, just start. Exactly. I forgot. I was watching Tammy Chin and Tisan Chin, their podcast, and from what I remember, Tisan was saying to Tammy, like, yo, I love the way you just go on. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect and whatever, but it's so true. The act of movement and just start wherever you are, eventually over time, if you care enough, you can perfect things or, perfect
Literally.
things, but just go, because there's more not being done when you don't start.
Exactly.
Bam. What life lesson did you have to learn the hard way?
What have I learned the hard way? Things are just things. Things are just things. Like, everything is just a thing. Things don't mean anything. I don't know how to say. Material things is what I'm trying to get to. Like, I love clothes. I love fashion. I love all of those things, right? And I used to think that those things symbolize certain, like, a status or whatever the case may be. But they are just things. And I learned that the hard way, because when it started becoming, like, when I had to become, like, more financially responsible, because I recently bought a house.
Girl.
Thank you. So I recently bought a house, and I was like, dang, that when you buy a house, you start looking at your finances, and you be like, I did what? I spent what on what? And that's why my credit card looking like that. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Things are just things. Like, you buy what you like or buy what you love. That. Right? Or buy what you want, as in, like, whatever it is in this world that you know that you want to experience in life. But if it's just something that you think is going to make you cool for the week or for the day or for the month or for the moment, it's just a thing. Like, it'll pass. There's going to be a better bag. There's going to be a better outfit. There's going to be a better... And at the root of it, the transfer of money, whether it's, in person or online, that's energy. Exactly. And if you're just like, I guess I'm in love with it, I'll get it. What is that? Exactly. It's true. Exactly. No, that's very true. Like, that goes back to what I'm saying. Like, if you love it, sure. But if you're committed to it, sure. But if it's just something like a passive exchange, then it's gonna be passive. It's giving passive. What have you recently learned about yourself? I recently have learned that in certain social settings, I can be extremely, I can have certain irrational fears. Yeah, like, I think it has always existed, but I didn't see them as irrational. I thought they were real life. Like, I thought they were actually happening. Like, give me an example. Like, so happened. I would think, like, in certain group settings, I'll be like, no one's here for me. Like, or like, they're not here to see me. They're just here because they just want to have a good time, or like no one cares, or they're not really my friends. Yeah. They just, they're friends with each other, but they just tolerate me, or things like that. Those are like intrusive thoughts that'll happen to me in group settings, right? Or like, I'm not attractive, or, things just like weird. And maybe it's things around or in the group that is triggering this. Yeah. Like, it'll be the most, but it's like extremely irrational, because it'll be like, oh, someone hasn't said something to me in 10 minutes. Now I feel like everyone hates me. Oh, you know what I mean? Oh, got like, you. So I recently found out. So then, like, that's why I would become socially anxious in certain settings. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't want to interact with people, because I'm like, they're judging me. They think that I'm talking too much. Or like, I'll be talking, and then like, I'll feel like, oh, people aren't responding to me talking. Oh, they think I'm talking too much. Maybe I should stop talking. Or, oh, they didn't. Yeah. So I've recently learned that it's irrational. Yeah. Like, before, I thought it was real life. Yeah. I thought, like, I was misunderstood. Yeah. I thought that people didn't understand me. I thought, I was just this weird person that people liked. But then when they got to know the real me, they were kind of like, you know what I mean? But that was actually such a lie. It's like the lie you taught yourself. I feel too, the real you, the real me, that only can hold space for so many people. So in my head, which it's probably unhealthy, but it's helping. I always feel like it's not me, it's you. But not like where I'm not, accountable for myself. But I remember reading the 4 Agreements, and it was like, I think one of them was like, don't take things personal. And then I just from there created a mental game where it's like, okay, for example, as you said, I'm talking for 10 minutes or whatever, and the person's not responding. I think in my head, okay, well, they feel small because I have so much to share, or they, just are at a loss of words, or they really have nothing else to say. Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, conversation's over. Bye. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think I'm like part of the I think I'm starting to think more of like the latter, like where if I'm placing less blame on anyone. Sometimes it just be like, sometimes it's not even the scenario that you've created in your head is not even happening. I think that's what I recently learned about myself, is that the irrationality of it is like, it's not happening. Like you think this is happening, but it's not
Jesus.
happening.
And that could be a little bit of a that could be a work in progress, because I noticed even just today I was talking to my babe, and they were like asking like, oh, how do you know so and so? And then I was like, I do. And they're like, yeah, look on your IG. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even realize I was following this person. And then there was like a little not inside joke, but I remember, I forgot how it was, but I had said, this sounds so bad, but I was saying how someone favored an ogre.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, so-and-so looks like an ogre. Just off the top of my mind. I know it sounds horrible. And so they were like, no, they don't. And I was like, yes, they do. But I'm thinking of, like, for example, the person's name is Becca. I'm thinking of a Becca in land A, and they were thinking of a Becca in land M. And so then fast forward, they were like, yeah, this is who you were saying looked like an ogre. And I was like, oh no, I didn't mean it. And so it turned out Becca is beautiful. And then the little chatter in my head was like,
oh, now they're gonna think.
No, now it's like, oh, my babe thinks that this person is like gorgeous. And then it's just like, oh wait, how close are you with this person? And do you really like me for me, or what's keeping you with me? Why are you not more into them? And I was just like, girl, go lay down.
Exactly. It's like that. It's like our mind is just like moving. I think that's what it is. It's just sometimes you just gotta look at things for what it is. It's like, it's not that deep. Like, you have to, the way that I've started to see it is like, I start to put myself in the opposite situation. Like, I start to put myself in that person's shoes, and I start to think of how they viewed that interaction. And then in the moment, I'll be like, there's many times where I've just like, might have just checked out of a conversation, and then I'll be like, oh yeah. Not because I don't care what you're talking about.
Because I check out a lot.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm thinking about something else. I'm thinking about a bill or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, dang, I feel bad. Sorry. But then you're probably now thinking that I'm not interested in anything that you're saying. So it's like, I just try to put myself in the other person's shoes, and like just try to not make everything seem so deep. But that's the definition of anxiety. It's just an irrational fear. And I think that for a while, I would claim that I have social anxiety, but I'm trying not to claim it anymore because there's power of the tongue. But yeah, no, just like those irrational behaviors.
I'm so freaking glad you're here. Like, this conversation's everything. If you touched on this, sorry, but what area within yourself would you like to grow in?
I would like to grow in community building.
Ooh.
Yeah, because of what I just spoke about with like me, having these irrational fears, it's harder for me to initiate community building because I'm like, what if nobody shows up? I don't know, people really don't want to show up for me and stuff like that. But that shouldn't stop me from reaching out and trying to build community.
That part. Well, you can start with me.
Yes.
And the podcast has been, I was telling my friend the other day, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I was doing well before the podcast, because this has shown me, one, if not anything else, how many people I have in my corner and are just waiting for me to hear from me. And literally. I'm kind of like, well, I'm waiting to hear from you.
That's just how the world
is.
Sometimes it's just like literally what you just said. It's like people just waiting. It's just like this waiting, and then it's like everyone's waiting, and then they just don't connect.
Boom. And then a bunch of people non-connected, but looking through the screens, feeling connected, but in real life ain't connected. And
that's a whole
all
other
that
conversation.
All right. We finally made it to the last section. Fun stuff. Let's see. What's your guilty pleasure snack?
My guilty pleasure snack. Ooh, cheese and crackers. It's so boring, but
girl, that's me.
Really?
Yeah. There's some from Trader Joe's. Girl, the non. But which one were you gonna say?
They have like these entertainment crackers assortment.
Ooh, okay.
And it's like seasonal.
You look like the assortment type.
Yeah. I love me a wheat cracker, vegetable cracker,
water
cracker.
I love this.
I love all of them. Yeah.
What's your weirdest habit? Might be probably normal to you, but weird to somebody else.
Like I don't know. What do I do? Like when I'm about to, like when I'm feeling really sleepy, I think I bite my tongue.
I used to do that, I think. Because that's not like when you said it, I wasn't like, huh? I was like, oh, I know that. Yeah.
I'll just like chew on my tongue to try to keep me awake.
What makes you feel most alive?
Performing.
Ooh, I could see that.
Performing.
100%. What are you most thankful for?
I'm thankful for life and thankful for my family and friends and thankful for my relationship with God, because that has evolved
always and forever
so much, you know. So those are the 3 things I'm thankful for. What
would you say and ask your future self?
Girl.
That alone.
I already know where my future self is gonna be. And I want to tell my future self, you are perfect just the way you are, because I know how I could get. You're perfect just the way you are, and you don't need to alter yourself or your relationships, because you just be authentically yourself and keep doing what you do, because you're the only one that does it that way.
And that is it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was all necessary.
All necessary.
Very necessary. It is.
Don't
all
sleep
necessary.
on it.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. This is so amazing.
Yes.